get up, let me begin. This is 𝗬𝗎𝗎𝗎𝗎. You ain't heard about us yet, well you better know now, because it's the place that it all goes down. Get up, let me begin. This is 𝗬𝗎𝗎𝗎𝗎. You ain't heard about us yet, well you better know now, because it's the place that it all goes down.
Shout out Young Swish.
Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of the Sit Down Morning Show with Malik Wright, presented by TWSN. I'm your host, Malik Wright. Joined by my co-host always, Daniel Almeida. A lot of stuff to get into, a lot of stuff to talk about. But before we do, make sure you guys do us a huge favor, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications so you guys never miss when we go live or when we do upload content from the TWSN official studios. Daniel, we have a lot to talk about. The Bengals beat the Baltimore Ravens on Thursday night. And it breathed new life, new air into this football team. It breathed new air into this fan base, to the city. I think a lot of that came from Joe Burrow obviously being back and seeing how well he played, how efficient he was. He started to play down towards the end of that game. He was a little bit rough, missed a little bit of passes, easier throws early in the game. Some critical drops from guys like 𝗕𝗄𝗧𝗏, that passes that you'd hope that they haul in. But all in all, the Bengals go out there and they beat the Baltimore Ravens. Some would even call it a blowout. Wasn't even that competitive. The defensive line showed so much promise. Guys like Myles Murphy, Joseph Ossai, Cedric Johnson. There's countless things that we could talk about, countless things that we can get into, countless things that we will get into. And we're going to do that on the show. Do us a favor, guys. Give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications so you guys never miss when we go live or when we upload content. So that being said, Daniel, what were your initial thoughts on the Bengals victory? Not even the initial thoughts, because the thoughts have settled in, right? That's part of why we start doing the show afterwards, not the day after the game, the same day after the game ends. What are your thoughts, though, now that the Bengals have beaten the Baltimore Ravens, now that the Bengals do have new life breathed into their season? Give me your thoughts, my man.
Yeah, this is, man, I swear, this is a little bit of deja vu, and we appreciate everybody tuning in and watching. This takes me back to last year, and it takes me back to a specific game. We watched the Cincinnati Bengals take on the Dallas Cowboys. And I remember that game. I don't exactly know what the Bengals record was during that game, but I just remember they were a team that needed new life. They were a team that needed momentum. And you start to see signs of that during the game. But not only that, it's the post game, right? It's the same exact thing. I remember us coming on this show and saying, man, it was a Simpson game. Ja'Marr Chase, Joe Burrow with the donut, laughing after the game. And you can start to sense a shift in the locker room. You can start to sense a momentum, a positivity. And that was the same thing. That post-game press conference, it wasn't just Bengals fans talking about that on social media. That was the entire NFL world saying that was one of the funniest press conferences. You see Joseph Ossai with his turkey leg. You see all these other players having fun, enjoying. That is what this Bengals team needed. They needed a win like this. And that's where the conversation starts, because we are going to talk about the potential for playoffs, but it starts about, how do you win football games? This team won one football game in the previous 9 weeks. One. And this team was on the ropes, and they found a way to get that one win. And this is how you build momentum. And I hate to say it, but Zac Taylor, when he says, we just got to find a way to win one, it kind of makes sense when you look at how the Bengals team won this game, because there are serious signs of positivity and serious signs of life for this Bengals team. You look at the rushing attack. First off, 𝗬𝗏𝗎 Perine had a couple of big runs. Chase Brown looked very good. This offensive line, they're not a problem anymore. And knock on wood, but they are one of the strengths of this team. You look at how Orlando Brown Jr., you look at how Amarius Mims completely shut out the Ravens pass rushers, and this team looked like a contender. This team looked like a capable football team, and they did it without T. Higgins. So this was a very positive win, and I think this is one that Bengals fans should feel good about. And for all the problems that I believe that this team has, for the roster construction, for the late game management, this team as a whole, whether it's this season, whether it's next season, there is serious potential with this team. And it really starts and ends with Joe Burrow. So I was very happy with it. A couple cornerstones, DJ Turner, another great game. Dax Hill had a phenomenal game. Myles Murphy showing serious signs of light. Joseph Ossai starting to be in the conversation of, oh, crap, should the Bengals go out and re-sign him? This was a complete team win, and the number one thing I will say is this was the type of win that you needed. This was the type of win that Bengals fans and everybody said it wasn't possible. They went out and they took the fight to Lamar Jackson. You had Ravens fans on Twitter calling for John Harbaugh's head top, calling for Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson looked like a terrible quarterback. That's what he did. It's not who he is, but that's the film that he put out on that Thursday night. He looked like a quarterback that was flustered. He looked like a quarterback that couldn't hit his target. He looked like a quarterback that didn't know which read he was going to. Al Golden found his groove. Al Golden starting to send more pressure. This team is slowly coming together, and I hate to say it, but they looked very good. And Malik, I thought you put it best. This game, it was not close. And that is with Joe Burrow playing his first half of football in the past 2 months. And like I said, we appreciate everybody in the comment section. Adrian said the Bengals will run the table. This team has serious signs of life, and you got 5 games left, 5 very winnable games. And like I said, you put yourself out to where you have a baseline, you have something to work with, and you get back T. Higgins. You brought up another great point. Mitchell Tinsley, I still think the dude has potential, but he had 9 targets. T. Higgins hauls in at least 5 of those. So the vision that this Bengals team had with T. Higgins, with Ja'Marr Chase, with Joe Burrow, with drafting Amarius Mims, it is there. The vision is there, and I still think they need to add more talent on the defense side of the ball, but I was very impressed, Malik, to be honest with you. I was very impressed with this team. I was very impressed with how they put together 4 full quarters. And this was a team that at the beginning of the game, I was a little concerned, right? You get to the goal line, you have the turnover, 4 straight plays or 3 straight plays. You pass the ball, you don't score. You're kicking field goals at 4th and 3 when your season's practically on the line. I was a little bit concerned at the beginning of the game, but you had guys come out, make big-time plays. Cedric Johnson, 2 fumble recoveries. These guys who were not making any plays. Geno Stone made a couple big plays. So I was very happy with how this Bengals team looked, and it gives you some signs of life for the rest of the season.
So I'm happy you got that out of the way. I'm happy that you started first because I share a completely different sentiment to this.
Yeah.
I think it's great that the Bengals got a victory on Thursday because I think winning cures all. But if I am going to fish out of the well of realism and honesty here, it does leave me in a weird spot.
Yep.
Because like you said, this was the Bengals' 4th win of the season. The last time they got their victory, another victory, was over almost a month ago, right? Like, to me, you managed to win 3 games, 2 of them in which Joe Burrow was a starting quarterback. Obviously, he left out in the second game injured, and Jake Browning had to finish that game, throwing a touchdown pass to T. Higgins. But I still ask myself just how good of a coach Zach Taylor is. I hate to be, again, we can't not discuss the things, right? We can't not discuss the things that we would discuss in a loss. And it brings me back to that. It does not sit well with me that this team is sitting at 4-8, because in year 7, understanding this team, you would think you would be able to find a way to get some victory somewhere. And I get it. You had some tough games, right? The Broncos won just totally unprepared, right? You got punched in the mouth and you had no answer for that. But I look at the games that were winnable, games like the Jets, who are a horrid team. They found a way to win that game against you. I look at a game like the Bears game. You had that. You had a chance to win that game. You fell down the stretch. I look at a game like the game just almost, what was it, a week ago? Against the Patriots. There are so many games we can look to, guys, that we have to find ourselves asking this question, okay, what went wrong? And I think that while a victory is great, I still have questions about Zach Taylor. And this is what I feared the discourse would turn to. All is well, Joe Burrow's back, but do you still have a deficiency at head coach? And I think I think you do. I think you do. I think no matter what, the head coaching spot is the spot I'm seriously looking at. And I get it. You don't want to change too much, especially if it's starting to work. But let's be honest, the schedule just fell into the Bengals' favor, right? At this time of the year, where the Ravens have a tough schedule down the stretch to have to face the Steelers twice. The Steelers have a tough schedule down the stretch where they have to face the Patriots, right? They face the Lions. Like to me, who does this say more about? Does it say more about Joe Burrow being able to galvanize the troops and get everybody to believe, or does it say more about Zac Taylor? And don't tell me that it works in tandem, because, well, if that was the case, Zac Taylor would be able to squeak out some victories with Joe Flacco. That's why you went out and you made the Joe Flacco trade. So to me, it's a little bit of a double-edged sword. And I know there are folks that probably think, oh, you just dislike Zac Taylor. And that's not the case. Guys, I'm just a realist. You know, it's very difficult on this show for me to step on here and be negative all the time. It really is. I really wish we were discussing victories. I really wish we were discussing playoff bursts. But that's not the job, right? That's the job, is to discuss the performances no matter what it looks like. No matter what it looks like. And sometimes those things are annoying. Sometimes those things are you beating a dead horse. Some of these shows sound very reminiscent of shows in the past. Why? Because if we have to talk about something so much at a nauseating pace, that should tell you a lot. I'm also one of the last people that will call for somebody's job. I really don't like to do that. But when you get to watch a product in depth, 4K, right, each and every single week, well, a lot like a lot of the people that are watching the show, a lot like the folks that are in the building, a lot like the folks that are paying their hard-earned money to be inside that stadium, they see the same product that we see, right? It doesn't take you. It's not like you could sell me on stuff. You can't sell me on stuff. I know what we've seen. I've seen. You know, I think that I think we looked at it, and I say, to me, I say to myself, I still have questions regarding how this season has played out. And I'm gonna be very, very clear. I do not give a fuck about the Ravens. I do not give a fuck about the Steelers. I care about what happens in those four walls at Paycor Stadium and how it impacts this team going forward. That's just how I feel, right? Do not care. Just being honest. And so at the end of the day, I always say, you know, head coaching should always come down to one thing. Are you winning or are you losing? Right? That's what it should come down to. Are you winning or are you losing? If you're losing, well, it is what it is. The record is the Bengals need to try to absolutely 100%. The Bengals need to run the table, right? That's something they need to do. And they help along the way, because you hope that the Steelers and Ravens take each other out while also maybe losing a game or two to another opponent. And those things are very real, especially with the way the Steelers season is spiraling. But to me, it's almost like you got a luck of a draw. And I want to get to a comment here. Somebody said, Ben, I don't want to pronounce your last name incorrectly. 1853 says, at Malik, no, everyone was actually saying the Ravens have an easy schedule after their bye, which is why they believe they would go undefeated. Ben, I was not one of those folks. I think you're probably speaking for the masses. I thought that the Ravens schedule was going to be tough down the stretch. I thought that I thought they've looked very weird lately with Lamar. Though Lamar hasn't looked right. But he says he's 100%, so I'm not going to give him any benefit of the doubt. I'm going to say at the end of the day, he was expected to go out there and do a job. He said he was healthy. He said his hamstring was good, and he didn't look good. I do want to shout out people like Joseph Ossai, people like Myles Murphy. Those guys just stepped up in such a huge way. Cedric Johnson recovering 2 fumbles. This is what you hope to see. This is the maturation process you were hoping to see from this defensive line, especially with the absence of Trey. And by the way, I've seen people out there make comments like, oh, Trey Hendrickson milking this, or Trey not seriously injured. From what I was told, you know, Trey could be facing potentially surgery at the end of the season. So he's actually trying to fight back to be out there for the Bengals. But right now, Trey is not healthy. That's just the fact of the matter. And that brings up a whole different conversation of, okay, well, why is he not on IR? Why are you not filling that roster spot with something else? And I don't have the answers to that question, but I do know that Trey Hendrickson potentially is probably facing surgery at the end of the season, but he's trying to tough it out. He's trying to gut it out to be out there for his team. So those who are saying, oh, Trey's milking this, Trey's robbing us blind, Trey's doing the yada, 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 that couldn't be further from the truth. So I want to be the person to dispel that really quickly. That all being said, Daniel, it is leave me a little bit torn. So I want to go back to the original topic, which is, will the Bengals go on a run? Well, I'm not going to change my stripes on what I said to you guys 2 weeks ago and what I said to you a week ago on the show. I said, well, I think the Bengals beat the Bills. I always thought if they got past the Ravens, which was going to be a tough game, right? But I think that now that they take on the Bills, a team that they've had their number, and the Bills are coming off of a high victory, obviously just beating the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think it's gonna be a tough one for the Bills. I really do. I think that they are still trying to figure out their offense, right? They're still trying to figure out who's gonna be that top receiver. Keon Coleman had a nice touchdown, albeit took a little bit of scrambles. Keon Coleman had a nice touchdown, which you could see emerge, right? But you're looking at guys, the Bengals are probably going to be healthy for the most part, right? Going to have T. Higgins back on the fold, going to have Ja'Marr Chase, going to have Joe Burrow back out there. And I got to think that after a week of play, 2 weeks being back at full practice, I've got to think now Joe Burrow is probably going to start hitting his rhythm. And I got to think that he's going to be prepared for what the Buffalo Bills throw at him. This is a team that we're very familiar with. We know what they like to do, right? And so when I look at it, man, I'm saying at the end of the day, this is a team, right? This is a team in which I expect they could go on a run, right? The Bills game, then you take the Ravens again. And we don't ever want to say there is a cakewalk team in the NFL, but you have the Dolphins, the Cardinals, Browns. Those are the last three. Those last three are favorable, albeit Jacoby Brissett is playing very, very good right now. He's playing very good for the Arizona Cardinals. But Dan, I want to get your thoughts. Do you think that this team runs the table?
They definitely have a chance. And this is the scary part because you even mentioned it. We can't forget where this team came from. This team last year came from 4-8 before that Cowboys victory, and they rattled off 5 straight wins. Mm-hmm. This team this season came from 3-8 before this past week, before potentially, having the chance to run the table. And I think that there's a very good chance that they can. And when I look at their schedule, it lays out beautifully. They have the easiest schedule amongst themselves, the Steelers and the Ravens. If you can get past the Bills, and I know I'm just saying get past the Bills and the Ravens, those are 2 very difficult games. But if you can win those 2 games, this team has a very good chance to make the playoffs. And when we discuss it, you obviously got to take care of your business, right? Go out there and beat the Bills and beat the Ravens. But you were discussing it, and it makes a lot of sense. The Ravens and the Steelers are both sitting at 6-6 right now. If you beat the Ravens, that means no matter what, you have the tiebreaker over them. So the only way that the Ravens can make the playoffs over the Bengals is if they win every single game outside of that Bengals one. Is that likely when they face the Patriots? Is that likely when they face the Packers? Is that likely when they face the Steelers twice? I don't know. And the Steelers, on the flip side of it, they face the Ravens twice. The Bengals need the Ravens to win at least one of those games. And if they can, the Steelers have a very good chance of losing at least one of those Ravens games. And they face the Lions, they face the Browns, and they face the Dolphins. If the Bengals win out, I do think, Malik, I think that they got a very good chance because it comes from your straight up record. Mm-hmm. And if it doesn't go to your record, it goes to your head-to-head. The Bengals split with the Steelers, but if they get the head-to-head over the Ravens, then it goes to your performance in the division. And that's why if the Bengals win out, they will be 5-1 in the division. The Steelers only have 1 loss in the division, but they also have 3 divisional games left. So the Bengals are in a very good spot when it comes to division if you win out. So do I think they win out, Malik? I think there's a good chance, to be honest with you, man. Because it's not like we're discussing 5 straight games. In my opinion, and this may seem a little short-sighted, but I do think if you beat these next 2 games and win these next 2 games, I find it very difficult to see the Bengals losing to the Dolphins, losing to the Browns, or losing to the Cardinals. Those are 3 teams. They are not playoff caliber teams. Those are 3 teams, while the Browns may be tough, they are bottom feeders. That is what those 3 teams are right now. Jacoby Brissett is playing close games, but they aren't doing enough to win. So you have 2 playoff caliber games going into Buffalo and coming back to Baltimore, or coming back here to face the Ravens. Malik, there's a good chance that they can run the table. And if they run the table, listen, I was a pessimist. I was saying on the last show, I don't even want to talk about playoffs.
I still don't want to. I still want to focus on getting your job done, right? Yeah. I think a big part of it is getting your job done. That's why you don't really even hear me say playoffs on the tip of the tongue. You heard what I said? I said, will the Bengals go on a run? Because we've seen the Bengals go on a run before and still fall short. We'll go on a run like how I said before, I don't care about the Ravens or the Steelers or whatever. I care about controlling what you can control, right? And whatever that shakes out to be, however that looks, that all comes down to you controlling the controllables. And what the Bengals have to do is the Bengals have to do what's in their best interest. They have to try and control the controllables, which means they have to go out there and they have to handle business against the teams that are on their schedule. Whatever way it shakes out, it shakes out. I still think Zach Taylor should be judged off of wins, losses, and for this matter, let me be just very clear when I say this: wins and losses. I don't think 9-8, running the table, then missing the playoffs should be enough to keep Zach Taylor's job. Because why are we in that spot? Because then you talk about those 3-point losses, or those games that you lost within a touchdown range. You talk about the Patriots game. You talk about the Bears game. You talk about the Jets game. You have to then start to bring those up, because then we start to look at you a little bit different, Willie. We start looking at you as a coach, because if you have an inability, which has plagued you, to win these one-score games, well, guess what? That puts you in a bind with us, because at the end of the day, if it takes Joe Burrow to come back for the defense to be, feel reinvigorated, if it takes Joe Burrow being back for the defense to do their job, right, and the offense to start clicking and humming again, well, what do we need you for? Right? Why don't we get a guy in here that's a good leader of men? Because it's the NFL, right? We all got to put on our big boy pants. We all have to, right? You're going to have to try and win games without starters out there. You're going to have to try and find to win games, no matter the circumstances. Life does not give you an easy road. And it goes for anybody in the workforce, whether you're playing football, whether you're working a 9-to-5 job, right? Whether you're doing construction, it doesn't matter. Whether you're a blue collar, it doesn't matter. Life does not come at you easy. You still have to deal and get the job done regardless of the circumstances. It might not be pretty, but at the end of the day, think about it. Does your boss want to hear about why you couldn't get it done? No, they're going to ask you at the end of the day, did you get it done or did you not? Right? So that's where the discussion ends for me. That's life. That's how the real world works, and not our fantasy world, right? We're talking about a game here. We're talking about a game, all right? We're talking about him going out there doing his job, coaching this football team, regardless if Ja'Marr Chase is out for being suspended, regardless if T. Higgins misses games, maybe due to an injury, regardless if Joe Burrow's out. Can you do the job? Because that's what the job calls for. You don't just tell your employer, hey, we're going to lose this week. Why? Oh, we don't have Joe Burrow. Oh, we don't have Ja'Marr. Oh, we don't have T. Higgins. Oh, we don't have trainers. Oh, did you get the job done? And better yet, are you competitive? Or do you look like a JV team out there? This is what we're talking about. And so, yes, it's important that you go out there and you do your job. I'm a big proponent of people doing their job. Big proponent of that. So I'll never get on here and I'll never make excuses for that. I'm judging this man off of one thing. Did you win or did you lose? And did it result into the ultimate goal? What is the Bengals' ultimate goal? It's every team's ultimate goal to start the season. Win a championship. Okay. Well, we didn't win the playoff, but we did have a winning. Okay. Well, I've seen guys like Jim Caldwell lose their job after having 10-win seasons. I've seen it. I've seen coaches who I thought the world of, and Brian Flores, lose their jobs. I've seen coaches have down seasons because it's clear they don't have enough talent on the roster and lose their jobs. We've seen it. So what makes you so special? Because you have Joe Burrow at quarterback and he likes you? Is that what it is? At the end of the day, a couple weeks ago, he was a coach without answers. A few weeks ago, he was a coach without answers. Stumbling through press conferences. Right? So at the end of the day, this is what I'm judging him off of. Because I am not a person fan. That's not me. I'm a guy with a show, a company, and I happen to also root for the Cincinnati Bengals, but I also wanted to inspire change and use my platform to do shows like this. I am for the greater good of the Cincinnati Bengals. And people might think, well, the greater good of the Cincinnati Bengals is going 9-8, keeping Zach Taylor even if you miss the playoffs. And I'm here to tell you that's not the case. You have to look at why you missed the playoffs. In those 3 games that I pointed out earlier, that's what it comes down to. That's what it comes back to. I don't mean to complain. I don't mean to, it's not what I'm trying to do. I'm just saying The result should still be judged off of the result. That's it. Thoughts, Dan?
Yeah, this is shaping up to be a very interesting end of the season. And listen, like P. Crawley said, 7-10 might make Zac Taylor's seat warm. When you look at it, and Malik, I share the same opinion as you when it comes to this. If the Bengals were to win out, that means Zac Taylor were to have 5 straight winning seasons as a head coach. That's not enough for me. And the reason why I'm making this stance is this shows me, and this should show Bengals fans, this team is not in the same realm as everybody else. They're in the same realm as maybe 5 to 8 teams where, hey, you have a legitimate shot to win the Super Bowl every single year because of that guy sitting at your quarterback position, as well as your 2-star wide receivers. The expectation is higher, and you only have a finite amount of time with said player at quarterback because you don't know how long he is going to play. What happens in 10 years, 15 years when Joe Burrow's out? Who's the next guy? How often do you have a player like Burrow on your team? And that's what it comes down to. And that's what I'm going to be looking at this Bengals front office at the end of the season, seeing how this all plays out. Because, Malik, that is my biggest fear. They go on a run. They don't make the playoffs. I'm with you. I still believe these past 2 seasons, you had a good enough chance to make serious noise in the playoffs. And if you don't even make the playoffs, I believe that the head coach should be out. And
well, I think for me, it starts and ends this way, right? Okay, this is what you're capable of. Why haven't you done this the entire, right? Well, like, why didn't you do this the entire season? Where was this the entire season? If the defense could play like this, right? Where did it not work out? Where did it fall off? That's where my mind goes. And maybe it's just too pessimistic. I have no idea. I don't mean for it to be. I mean for it to be real. But that's where my mind goes. Okay. If this is the defense can play with their hair on fire, and we can see you guys can play all as a cohesive unit, then why? Why has this not why has this not resulted in more wins this football season? Because think about it. Just one of those victories, and we run the table, right? It puts you at 10 wins. If you run the table and you get one of those winnable games, that puts you at 10 wins on the season. And to me, that's been too far. That's been too much of the story of the Cincinnati Bengals. Daniel?
Yeah, that's a story. And it's something where you have to be pissed off. And listen, I disagree with some of these comments. I understand where you guys are coming from, saying, Zach may not be gone. It is what it is.
Well, let's talk about that, Daniel, because I think there are some folks that are widely mistaken as to where my stance is on this. People are saying, "Oh, Zach won us 5 playoff games." This is the standard, or whatever the case may be. Somebody said, "Let's get real. Zach's seat isn't even plugged in. Cincinnati finishes his contract at the least." He also said, Marvin coached 16 years without winning a playoff game. Well, let's talk about that. Marvin, for the most part, okay, it's a completely different situation. Right. Marvin Lewis essentially helped bring the Bengals to a respectable level. Like, this was a team that wasn't even respected around the league. He got players to want to play in Cincinnati. He got people talking about Cincinnati again. He got Cincinnati playing on these national televised primetime games. Otherwise, the league would have just shoved Cincinnati away. So completely different situation. But also, right, he had the Bengals competitive. It was unfortunate. Carson Palmer tore his ACL, the whole 9 yards. But he had the Bengals competitive. I think people forget he made the playoffs 6 years in a row with Andy Dalton, right, at the quarterback helm, right? Even in the midst in which Andy Dalton went down in the season, they still found a way to be competitive with guys like A.J. McCarron. Showed he still had the belief of the locker room. He also kept respectable defenses out there, right? He had good coordinators. He had established a coaching tree here in Cincinnati, and a successful one at that for the most part. So the situations are a little bit different. Where the situation changes a little bit is Zac Taylor did go to the Super Bowl with Joe Burrow. We saw what Zac Taylor's record was like without Joe Burrow right before the Bengals drafted him. Then we saw what Zac Taylor's record was like without Joe Burrow when he went out a couple of times. And then you get close to the ultimate goal. You get close to the Super Bowl. The team goes out there and says, well, we built the offensive line. They built an offensive line, the whole 9 yards. Joe Burrow still gets hurt. Maybe it was not to what they should have done, and it wasn't to what they should have been. It was not the standard of what it should have looked like. They should have gone out there and tried to get even better at the guard spot. They tried to do some stuff with the tackle spots, whatever the case may be. Now, again, like I said last show, you have to ask yourself, are you going up or are you going down? Right? And the fact of the matter is, you know, now if the Bengals were to miss the playoffs this year, this would be 3 years in a row missing the playoffs. Meaning 3 years ago, you were in the AFC Championship, and the year before that, you were in the Super Bowl. You have not touched that. You have not come close to that. So I think that's where the conversation turns for Zac Taylor, right? Marvin Lewis was given a leash. I think the last time the Bengals made the playoffs was what, 2015? Then they missed it 2016, 2017, 2018. Marvin Lewis was out after the 2018 season. Zac Taylor came in. So Marvin Lewis missed the playoffs 3 years in a row, and he was out. Zac Taylor is on the cusp of missing the playoffs. What? 3 years in a row. So you do the math. That's where I'm at. There is no world in which you should miss the playoffs 3 years in a row as a head coach, and you should still keep your job. That's not bullying him. That's not singling him out. That's just being the God's too honest truth. There's a ladybug flying around here, and it just made me jump. So let's be very, very honest with ourselves. That's what we're talking about here. We're not talking, and the math might not always add up. But if you miss 3 years in the playoffs anywhere else, you'd be as good as cooked. You'd be as good as gone, right? And that's just the fact of the matter is, guys. And let me ask you this, Daniel, because obviously everyone is widely known Zac Taylor has 1 year left on his coaching contract. Is Zac Taylor getting an extension at the end of the season if they miss the playoffs? No, probably not. So you're going to want a coach to come in a lame duck year and give his all. That's what you want. Oh, well, they won't pay a guy to sit at home. Well, they fired 𝗬𝗏𝗎𝗪. They fired guys who had another year on their contract. They did. Some of those guys went on and got other jobs. It's not unheard of. And Lou was one of the higher paid coordinators in football. That's what they did when they renegotiated his last extension here in Cincinnati. So at the end of the day, man, that's where I stand. That's where I sit at it. We all want to say, oh, Zac, this, Zac, that. Let's be honest. Let's say the nuts and bolts. And it's just so lazy to say, oh, you're just going to stay here. Oh, he's going to get a stay. That's not where I have a job to do. And my job is to sit up here no matter who likes it, no matter who is stuck in their ways, set in their ways, and doesn't believe that things will change. My job is to still promote change. Danny, anything else you want to add?
Yeah, it's the last thing I'll say to that. I agree. And that's why I'm excited to see where the rest of the season goes. I feel like there's a lot of moving parts. The one part I feel like isn't getting discussed enough in this whole Zac Taylor conversation, and I know Joe Burrow's been hurt. I understand. But ask yourself the question, when we discuss these other teams that have lost multiple seasons in a row, have not made the playoffs, bro, what team has Joe Burrow at quarterback and keeps a losing head coach? None. Go find me a quarterback that has had an MVP-like season the season before that's missed the playoffs fully healthy. Go find me them and point to the head coach and say, hey, that guy is still there, because it doesn't happen. You don't have a quarterback like Joe Burrow have an elite season like he had last season, have the potential that he has, have 3 missed playoffs, and still be there. And that's where I feel like doesn't get discussed enough, because this team, for as much crap as the defense should get, you have Joe freaking Burrow on your team. How rare do you have a top 3 quarterback on your team and you miss the playoffs 3 straight seasons? That alone, for me, gives me all the confidence to say, hey, does my team look a lot worse without Zac Taylor? I do not think so. And if that's the conversation, if I look at next season and say, hey, losing Zac Taylor doesn't make me a whole lot worse, I'm cool with firing him, especially after the performance of, hey, 3 missed playoffs in a row with Joe Burrow at the helm. You should be gone.
Now, that being said, Joe Burrow and company are going to go out there, run the table, and then things fall in their favor, Zac, I'll be the first one sitting up here saying, you deserve another opportunity. You deserve another opportunity. I'm adopting the show me, right? I am adopting that because where I stand and where I sit, I do not feel as if he is. I do not feel as if he is an uplifter of men. I do not feel like he's an uplifter of the head coaching spot. There's still time to prove me wrong. There's still time to prove me wrong. I will say that was one of Al Golden's best defensive performances from a coaching standpoint. More so from an execution standpoint. The game plan was executed. I'm sure he's had good game plans that he thought were going to work, but this was executed properly by the players. In the last 3 weeks, the Bengals defense has started to turn this thing around. Honestly, I'm at the point now, I don't care what you're ranked. I don't care about any of that. I care what the eye test shows me. I want to know, are we seeing improvements from the defensive side of the ball?
What if they run the table and miss the playoffs?
Okay. Well, we're in the same spot that we were last year. Lou still lost his job, and the defense was still playing great last year. Why shouldn't you? 3 years of missing the playoffs, your job is to be the head coach of this football team, not to be the offensive coordinator. Goodbye. That is where I stand. That's where I sit. It's non-negotiable for me. And I think it's just as simple as that, because then you fall back to, why were we only at 9 victories when you had other winnable games? You can't say it's a Burrow thing, because you had 3 winnable games. You had them. What happened with the Jets game? Those things start to become talking points. What happened in the Patriots game? Those things becomes talking points. Why weren't you able to find victories in those games? Why? See how that works? So you have to. That is why you literally analyze the season as a whole. That is the good thing about them giving Zach an opportunity. Analyze season as a whole, because then you can pinpoint where the part of the schedule got rough. Can't say, oh, well, we couldn't win games with Flacco. You beat the Pittsburgh Steelers on a Thursday night when nobody believed you would. You beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. Had them playing lights out. People were saying Flacco elite just a few weeks ago. So what happened in the Patriots game? Right? What happened in what happened in the Patriots game? What happened in the Jets game? What happened? These are the questions. This is what we have to talk about. And again, might be falling on deaf ears, but it's the truth. There's things that people have to be held accountable for. Someone has to answer for the season. Will it be Sir Duke Tobin?
Sir Duke Tobin.
Will it be Zachary? Someone's going to answer for this. Someone's going to. And the question the Bengals have to ask themselves is, do we think we can get better at the head coaching spot? I can answer that for you right now. You can. You can. Whether it's the stubbornness or just the not laying it all on the line and putting it, I don't want to be disrespectful, but putting it on the table, essentially. These are things that are important, man. These are things that they're going to need to do to improve. That being said, I want to go from Zach Taylor, guys, and I want everyone's opinion on this, to another team in the AFC North, because we have 2 more topics we want to talk about. We've been live for a while already. I didn't even realize that. But do you think the Steelers should move on from Mike Tomlin, Daniel? The growing chatter is right now is Mike Tomlin's lost his superpower, his ability to lead men, inspire men, and people are now calling for that guy's job. There was also an anonymous report out there that there is a certain coach that might be looking for a change of scenery, a longtime coach. And the only person that everyone could think of is Mike Tomlin. But this team is playing uninspired. They have not found a stable quarterback at the spot since Ben Roethlisberger retired years ago now. What do you think is next, man? Do you think that the Pittsburgh Steelers should move on from Mike Tomlin? Do you think they should get a new voice in Pittsburgh? Talk to me.
I think so. And there's a couple non-negotiables for me. And you discussed one when we were talking about the last topic. For me, this season, let me put it, there's still a lot in front of the Steelers this season. A non-negotiable on either side. Let me just say this. I believe if the Pittsburgh Steelers win the division and they go out and win their first playoff game in the past 8 years, you can't fire Mike Tomlin. I'm not, right? And that is the upside. That is the ceiling, in my opinion. You go out, you win the division, you have another winning season, and you win your first playoff game. If I look at that, I look at this roster, I say, hey, Mike, you deserve to have another season. They just gave him a contract extension last season. On the flip side, if they have their first losing season in Tomlin's history, that's non-negotiable. You are out of here. And like, there's a couple points I look at with the Steelers situation that we can discuss, right? The offense coordinator position. You could say, hey, he's being hindered by his offense coordinator. You had Matt Canada, who was terrible. You have Arthur Smith, who's calling calling a bad offense. He's hindering the Mike Tomlin led Steelers. You can look at the quarterback position, say, hey, he had a 38, 39-year-old Ben Roethlisberger. He had Mason Rudolph. He had Duck Hodges. He had Kenny Pickett. He had Russell Wilson. He had Justin Fields. Now he has a 40-year-old Aaron Rodgers. Those guys aren't helping Mike Tomlin. You can look at the roster and say, hey, they traded away George Pickens. This roster isn't constructed to win. He is overperforming expectations. But to all of those points, Malik, I say this, Mike, you are a part of the problem. I look at the offensive coordinator. Who's the one that hired every one of those offensive coordinators? It is you. I look at the quarterbacks. Who is the one that wanted Kenny Pickett? Who's the one that had a relationship with him in Pittsburgh, who was with him, who met with him many times throughout his days at Pittsburgh College? Who was the guy that called for Aaron Rodgers to say, hey, he is our guy. He's the one. You guys see his resume. He is our guy. It was you, Mike Tomlin. Who was the one that traded away George Pickens because he was immature, because he wasn't professional? It was you, Mike Tomlin. You have roster control. There's some that even say he has more control in certain decisions than their current general manager. And it makes sense. He's been there for 19 years. He knows the ownership. So that is where I fall on this situation. When the fans are out there calling for your head top, when you have a roster that is aging, when you, quite frankly, have a message that has grown stale, your defensive scheme is the same scheme that you ran 15 years ago. At some point, your message grows stale. At some point, you've got to move on. And that's where I'm going to give a little leeway, because there's still more in the story to be told. They're 6-6 right now. They're still in the running for the AFC North. They could go out and win the division. They could go out and win a playoff game. And I feel like that deserves some grace. But am I confident in saying that? No. I don't think they win a playoff game. I don't think that they are a 10-win team. I think that they are a 9 and 8-win team. And if they go 9-8 and they make the playoffs and they have another terrible performance in the playoffs, I do think that that's grounds for firing Mike Tomlin. Because listen, I understand the record, 19 straight winning seasons or non-losing seasons. That is great. I understand that. And maybe they are being blindsided by the fact that there are worse head coaches out there. But at some point, your message has grown stale. And if they don't win a playoff game, and if they falter near the end of this season, I do believe that Mike Tomlin should be out of there. So,
well, I think you bring up some great points. And one thing I want to add on is I think Mike Tomlin's still a very good football coach. I think sometimes messages do grow stale. It happened with Andy Reid in Philadelphia, Bill Belichick with the New England Patriots, Tom Coughlin with the New York Giants. All those guys had success. All those guys, for the most part, now Super Bowl winning coaches, because Andy Reid went on and won a Super Bowl with the Chiefs, multiple at that. I think Mike Tomlin's going to land on his feet. I think he would land on his feet. I think there will be teams that will be interested in him. I think the Raiders, if they were to move on, Pete Carroll would be interested in him. I think that there are several teams that will go out there and try to acquire the services of Mike Tomlin. That's what, at the end of the day, man, I think that Harbaugh, John, that being, and Mike Tomlin, to me, are in similar situations where I think maybe just a change of scenery would do them good.
he's young too.
Yeah. Who, Mike Tomlin?
Yeah.
Yeah. He don't look too young.
He look crazy.
You look crazy. You look a little old. Looking like Samuel Jackson in your face. But if I'm being honest with it, I think that at the end of the day, Mike Tomlin's message has grown a little bit stale. I just think it will be. I think a lot of Steelers fans have a lot of respect for them, and I thought that Brent made up a great point. They're so competitive that it's also at a detriment to themselves. They're not really able to go out there and have a high enough draft pick to go out there and get a quarterback and whatever the case. It's rough going for them. It's just rough going for them. And so that's just the way I see it. I think that I think the world of Mike Tomlin. I think he'll land on his feet. But I do think a change of scenery could be best for the Pittsburgh Steelers and him as well. I really think they could. And maybe they'll go out there and they'll bring in an offensive guru or whatever type of coach. Maybe that's needed. Maybe those things are needed. I also wouldn't shock me if Mike Tomlin took a year out from coaching and just took a step back and just rested, because he's been on the job, 18 years, something like that, or something close to
19, man.
19. Yeah. So like at the end of the day, it's just one of those things where sometimes you just need a little bit of a reset. I want to keep the conversation going. And let us know down in the comment section what you guys think the Pittsburgh Steelers should do. Last but not least, I want to end the show with this. Did Lane Kiffin leave Ole Miss better than he found it? That is obviously such a interesting, weird situation. Lane Kiffin essentially was leaving Ole Miss to go take the LSU coaching job in the same conference. A lot of folks don't love the way he left. He tried to stay on and wanted to be at least coach the team through the playoffs. The athletic director and obviously the players were not on board with that. And, it got a little messy, apparently. As has been reported, Lane Kiffin was basically saying, hey, if you don't let me coach the playoffs, then I'm going to poach the staff. I'm going to take the offensive staff with me. And he's done that, right? But I have a question for you, though, Daniel. Do you think, first of all, what are your thoughts on the way Lane Kiffin left? But also on top of that, do you think that Lane Kiffin left Ole Miss better than they found? Remember, this is Ole Miss' best season in the history, right?
Mhm.
They're looking squarely at the playoffs. Do you think Lane Kiffin left Ole Miss better than he found it?
Yeah, I think this was a messy situation and it could have been handled better. But this isn't even a question for me. And this is where I'm on the side of Lane Kiffin on this. Listen, he was messy. I understand. He drugged this out. I understand. But dog, like he was their saving grace. People, I know they had Hugh Freeze there, right? And Hugh was good at times. He had a 10-win season, but was he great? No. When you look at Ole Miss's history, right? They're in the previous 47 years before Lane Kiffin, Malik, they had 2 seasons with 10 or more wins.
Mm-hmm.
Lane Kiffin in 6 seasons has had 4 10 or more win seasons. He single-handedly is the guy that's kind of putting Ole Miss on the map. Ole Miss, to new college football fans, is being discussed in the likes of LSU, is being discussed in the likes of Alabama. And I understand NIL makes, these powerhouses, these dynasties less likely. But let's not forget what Ole Miss was before Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin has turned this program around. Undoubtedly, he left them better than he found them. Undoubtedly. And that's where I look at this situation and I give him credit, right? A point that was interesting, Malik, Ed Orgeron, right? LSU's head coach who won a national championship. Do people remember that he was Ole Miss's head coach? No, they don't, because he went on to a fantastic program in LSU and won a natty. That's what he did. And for me, this is very simple. It is a pay raise of $3 million per year with a 7-year guaranteed contract. He gets LSU, who is a pipeline for young guys. He doesn't have to share any of that state with any other school. Louisiana is one of the hotbeds of the entire nation in prospects. So undoubtedly, LSU is a far better situation. It has a much bigger legacy. And this is where Lane Kiffin undoubtedly
doesn't have obviously they have a better legacy of championships, but I'm saying, do you think Lane Kiffin would have become a bigger star at Ole Miss or at LSU? Because for me, I understand everything that LSU offers, right? Maybe an Alabama guy through and through. I understand it. I understand why you'd want to go and coach LSU, the pipeline, the championships, the national stage. I get all of that. But I feel like Lane Kiffin was turning Ole Miss into a powerhouse, right? People talk about how Lane Kiffin doesn't really like to stay loyal to programs. He kind of is always looking ahead to that next opportunity. It makes you wonder, is good ever enough for Lane Kiffin? Because he had the ability to create his own legacy, to have a statue potentially built up outside of, the Rebel Stadium when it was all said and done for him. He had the ability to really inspire change. Ole Miss Rebels got behind him. Players got behind him. State of Mississippi got behind him. And it just wasn't enough. And, you're leaving for the you're in the SEC still. You're still in the SEC. And maybe that's the Lane Kiffin magic. Maybe he's able to realize this is as far as I could take this program. I've taken this program to new heights. So this is probably as far as I'm going to go with them. So I'm going to look for greener pastures and maybe look to see if I can take myself to new heights and bring a national championship. Because you got to believe, right, that Lane Kiffin has his eyes set on winning national championships with LSU. He probably thinks LSU gave him the best opportunity, the best shot at doing that such thing. So I don't know, man. I'm a little bit torn on it. I understand why he left. I understand the way he left. And I actually think he's getting a lot of heat for it.
Yes.
You know, I think that I understand both sides. I understand why he wanted to finish coaching out his team the rest of the way. I thought that both sides might look back on it and say, hey, I wish this was handled a little bit better from the deadline perspective. And I understand this goes down to the NIL, the transfer portal, all that whole nine, all that kind of stuff just makes things a little bit wonky, right?
And that's the one pushback I will have for Lane Kiffin. And the one pushback I will say that Lane Kiffin maybe should have stayed is because of this new age, right? And I understand it's a difference of philosophies, right? Some people say, hey, I would rather be loyal to one team even through our losing seasons. And one other philosophy is, hey, I want to win at all costs. The day and age of NIL is where I can look back maybe in 5 to 10 years and say, hey, Lane, you might have made the wrong move, because look at Nick Saban, right? Nick got out of here at the right time. He knew the day and age of these dynasties, it's no longer here. You can't really develop guys for 4 straight seasons, which means that any team really has a chance to win. So while LSU has a better recruiting hotbed, there is a chance that with the whole NIL stick, you could get a better quarterback at Ole Miss. You could have built something better at Ole Miss, because now it's not just Alabama, LSU, Ohio State. It's Ole Miss now. It's Indiana now. It's Notre Dame. Every one of these teams has a real fighting chance. So that's the one pushback. Maybe in 5 to 10 years, we'll say, man, LSU wasn't on a whole different level than these other teams, because now it's all about money. These kids want to go wherever the money is. And Ole Miss, while they may not have been able to pay Lane Kiffin what LSU is, I still believe that if he was there, they could have afforded these hot prospects, especially a quarterback, because at the end of the day, that's what you need in college football. So
I agree, man. I agree. Let us know down in the comment section what you guys think of Lane Kiffin's departure from Ole Miss. Let us know down in the comment section what you guys think about our discussion on Mike Tomlin. And let us know down in the comment section what you guys think on our discussion on the Cincinnati Bengals and their season. Listen, we appreciate you guys for spending your morning with us. Remember, there's only one way you should be waking up, talking sports, enjoying your cup of coffee, and that is the right way. We'll look forward to seeing you guys again live. Wednesday, we'll be live on State of the Jungle at 7 p.m. and we'll be back live Thursday with Tim here in the building for another episode of the Sit Down Morning Show. But we appreciate you guys. We hope that you guys had an awesome holiday. Thank you for spending your morning with us, and we'll see you next time.